All right, well, then let's call this meeting to order after 7 o'clock. Welcome, Roger. Welcome, everybody, in fact, and welcome to all of you in our community. Of course, our educators, our staff, and of course, our volunteer board members again tonight, as well as the cabinet with us. Thank you all so very much. This is an exciting week. It has been a week of welcoming at Whitburn, with our students coming back and our choice block families overwhelmingly voting over 90% to officially join our community. We are so excited on this level. So yay, great to have you, you bet. This again is exciting in that we reopen TK to 2, 3 to 5 is reopening at 138th next week. And our first presentation will to address middle school reopening by our principal and assistant principal joining us. Thank you both at Dana. Just a big special thank you for me and probably from all of us for everyone for reopening. Our amazing and positive staff throughout, our wonderful and dedicated administrators, our cabinet, principals, and enthusiastic thank yous to our fabulous and resilient teachers. All of you have done a remarkable job. Thank you so very much. I also want to do a shout out and thank you to our parents and our guardians who have so diligently brought your students to school. You've brought this inspiringly cooperative spirit and it's been infectious. Your exemplary actions have set the stage for continued positive reopenings yet to come. So thank you. Let's keep it up. Kudos all around. So again, fun start. Let's start then our meeting officially with a motion to adopt the agenda, please.
You have a motion.
You have a second.
Thank you, both of you. Wendy, Ms. Subaki?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
All right. Ms. Breedy Clark, would you be so kind as to lead us in the flag salute?
Of course. Please stand. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Kiana. Appreciate you being here tonight. We look forward to hearing from you shortly. Okay, we'll now turn to public comments. First of all, Wendy, do we have any public comments tonight?
I do not have any public comments this evening.
All right, thank you. Then I will share just briefly. We did have some share your thoughts comments that you put on the website. We encourage everyone to make those comments. We learned from them. We do read them. Basically, the themes this last couple of weeks were about comments about reopening and appreciation there too, as well as appreciation the kids are receiving lunch, regardless of if you quote unquote needed it or not per se. There's no shaming for the students who do especially need it, and I appreciate that comment. Comments also about communications and ensuring for all of our principals and our district that whenever we reference an app, a program, a site, an event, that we be sure to include the link in the communication and on the websites, which of course makes sense and a good reminder to us. So thank you for those. Again, you inform us and you make us better. So no other comments. If that's the case, we will move on. Dr. Silvers, I believe we have a special presentation to start us off this evening.
We do. We have our middle school administrative team here. So I just want to thank Kiana and Kevin, Mr. Cornett, and Mrs. Clark. I have to get used to Mrs. Clark. I'm sorry for putting together a schedule. There has been, I think, 1,000,001 schedules as we've sort of had to dance around the health orders that are coming out, and they keep changing, and how we fit certain numbers of students in a secondary classroom. We've shared this with the board in the past. How do we sort of live within the constraints of what the health orders are allowing for us to do? And so, Kiana and Kevin have just done a fantastic job of putting together schedules. And I think you'll see a schedule that's very thoughtful and that's comprehensive for our students under these circumstances. So I guess without further ado, I'll turn it over to Kiana to start.
All right, thank you. I'm going to share my screen, and as we begin our presentation, just a sincere thank you to the board and to the public for having us be a part of this meeting. We are riding the high and excitement of bringing our kids back. And I know some of our admin team were actually at the elementary sites this week, and that only brought more joy to us and excitement about the prospect of our middle schoolers coming back and coming back very soon. So in our presentation today, we're very happy to show you and kind of tour you through what we would propose as a hybrid schedule for our students at Dana Middle School. So I wanted to start with our commitments, and these were commitments that guided us through our hybrid planning, and it goes all the way back even to RAP, which was sort of our first iteration of planning, and even into our most recent collaborative group we called our GC Plus with our teachers and parents representatives when we looked towards a hybrid schedule. And our first commitment was to stay student-centered and make our decisions in our plan that revolved around what was best for our students. We also wanted to safely provide rich learning opportunities for students through distance learning and in-person hybrid learning programs. And that was really important and also has been an interesting challenge that we met head on, because we knew families, whatever their circumstance is, they might be remaining in distance learning. And regardless of that decision, we want to make sure that they are still receiving as rich, as engaging of an opportunity to learn, and in continuity of learning is still maintained for our distance learners. And our third commitment was equitable access to learning for all of our students, and keeping in mind our special education students and the push-in model we've worked very hard to create and maintain, our 504 students, our permit students that might be coming from out of district. And so trying to keep in mind all of our students when we made this plan, that was our third commitment, and did really help us through the process when we started crafting, as Dr. Silver says, 1,000,001 schedules. So when we present the schedule in the next slide, I just wanted to point out and highlight sort of the pros and cons of this schedule. We have yet, and we've tried to find the perfect schedule with no cons, but there are some gives and some takes when we had to work within the constraints of guidelines and the number of students we do have. But the pros we feel so strongly about. So first is it does adhere to the recommendations from the LA County Department of Public Health. We are going to maintain stable student groups and all of the safety measures in place, with 6 feet of distance between all of our desks, minimizing exposure for our students and the number of teachers they see, as well as our staff and the number of periods of students they see. And so that will take some restructuring of our schedules, but it does allow us to adhere to those recommendations. Our schedule also pivots easily to 100% virtual if needed. So if at any point we do have an exposure or we need to quarantine or shut down the cohort, it easily and seamlessly transfers into 100% virtual, so we're not losing any learning. Our A and B cohorts are really supporting our small group instruction. I think all of us have sort of learning loss on our mind or possible gaps for our students through this distance learning. And we know small group instruction is one of the most effective ways to move our students forward and address those gaps. Through our cohorts, we will have small groups of students on site, and I believe that the instruction can be that much more impactful in those small groups. Nearly every student remains with the core teacher, and that is really one of the sort of anchors when we planned. It was very, very clear from teachers and from parents the importance of staying with their teacher and not losing that connection and the rapport that they've built. Students, in essence, then will remain on their current team of teachers. So not only do they stay with their teachers, but they keep their core team. And we were able to maintain 5 days of pod, and pod is our advisory period. That is a period where we have social emotional support lessons. We have Transformational Tuesday every Tuesday, Wellness Wednesday. Fridays are all about personalization and community building. And we knew we wanted to keep that, especially in what has been very much a mental crisis for a lot of society, keeping that and supporting our students with the use of our counselors and our pod teachers. Now the cons, there are some cons with the constraints that we have, or the recommendations put forth by the Department of Public Health. We are only able to have 2 days of instruction on site. We wish we could fit 4, and we do have schedules for that, but right now, for the safety of our students and our staff and the recommendations from the health experts, it will be 2 days per week. We are-
Kiana, excuse me, could I clarify? Is that 2 days per week for each student?
Yes,
Okay, it's not that the school's only open 2 days per week.
yes,
Right.
2 days per
Okay.
student. Thank you. Thank you for asking that. Yes,
Thank
2
you.
days per week per student. Because of the complexity of our electives, which are multi-grade, so they're mixed grade, our electives, we are looking to move electives and fitness time asynchronously, so they will not be live lessons. But both Kevin and I are already planning with the elective teachers to explore opportunities for live lessons on Wednesday, as well as some of the offsite time that the cohorts will have. So you'll see in the schedule that there is no actual period that says elective, but we are working to fit that in and still provide that. Our elective teachers are wanting to be very creative and still ensure that online live lessons are provided. And we do have a block of time called student support time, which was very necessary in distance learning. We will see a reduction in those blocks of time from 10 to 4 times a week. However, we believe with the small group instruction on site and the assumption we will have a much smaller percentage of distance learner students, the need for those 10 student support time blocks won't be necessary, and 4 will definitely support our students. So I would love to tour you through what could look like. I know I feel like this is the second time I've gotten to present what seems like a complicated schedule, but this is a hybrid schedule, and we're going to focus on what that means in terms of whether you're a cohort A or a cohort B student. And it is color coded. So orange represents cohort B, and the greenish moss color represents cohort A. And so just for an easier way to explain this, I will talk you through the week for a cohort A student and what that looks like. So if you are a cohort A student, you will start your day in pod, which again was one of our pros. You still start your day with an advisory period. You will be on site and in periods 1 and period 3 from 9 to 11:30. So that is your small group instruction with your first period, a recess, and then small group instruction with your third period class. We will then have a staggered dismissal, which attaches to your lunch. So you're looking at that in that white box. And then from 12:25 to 2:35, you are off site and you are engaging in independent practice, as well as this is where we're trying to fit in some of that asynchronous or hopefully synchronous PE and elective options for you as a cohort A student. You will also have an opportunity at the end of the day at 2:35, if you're a cohort A student, to drop into that student support time. So should you have questions, clarifications, maybe you missed an assessment, you would be able to drop into your teacher's class and have that connection with them and get some support. That's your Monday. We do maintain a block schedule. Dana has always had block schedule, and we're going to maintain that here. It works in our favor because it means less class periods a day, so less exposure. So I'm cohort A. I have Tuesday back on site again. I start with pod. I now go into my my in-person live small group instruction with periods 2 and 4. And I dismiss at the same time. And now I'm doing more offsite. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm now doing more offsite independent practice and the asynchronous or synchronous PE and elective in the afternoon, with ending my day with some more student support time. So our A cohort is on site on Mondays and Tuesdays.
I have
Wednesday,
a
of course.
question, Kiana. Let's say that cohort A, with their period 2 through 4, had some questions or wanted to hear some of the material again. Is it possible for them to drop into the afternoon session of that same material?
That's a great question. I don't imagine that they would be prohibited from doing that. It does make your cohort B and afternoon classes quite large. And so we just want to be careful we're not impacting the instruction of our cohort B by inflating those, but that's something we can definitely explore and see what that looks like.
I just wonder, I mean, there's no like, they'd have the link or they'd know how to do that if they were doing that.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Wednesday, we are still starting with, this is an offsite day for all of our students, but they will still start in pod. Again, we just can't stress enough how valuable that class period is for our students. And then it is an asynchronous learning day for the rest of the day. But this is kind of a golden opportunity where our fitness coaches and our elective teachers want to be able to provide those live online classes. And so we want to work with them with chunking out that time so our students do have that opportunity on Wednesday and they're not completely asynchronous all day. Again, I walked you through if I were a cohort A student, so I'm going to continue. So I am cohort A and it's now Thursday. In that morning time block, I'm continuing what was maybe pushed out to me on Wednesday. So the lessons that came to me asynchronously, I'm still following up, still finishing some of those elective activities that I didn't finish from Wednesday. And then I will hop on at 12:25 and receive my live online instruction for periods 1 and 3. So there's my block of time live, and then it leads directly into student support time. So if I have questions from periods 1 and 3, I have the opportunity to attend the student support time. We move into Friday. We still have pod, even though I'm off site as cohort A, I still get to engage in pod with my class. And then I'm working asynchronously in the morning. And at 12:25, I am back on live online for periods 2 and 4 and wrapping up my week with student support time and getting any support I might need there. So this again represents our hybrid schedule with a cohort A in green and our cohort B in orange. And you'll notice that it does trade off when you're on site and when you're off site. And it does maintain our block schedule still with 4 core classes scheduled in, which would be English, social studies, math, and science.
Can I ask another question?
Of course.
Sorry. How is
Please
it?
ask.
How is attendance taken, or when is attendance taken?
Great question. We would still take attendance. We take attendance throughout every period, but the most important period for attendance is our pod class, because that's where we're starting and kicking off the day. And that's where all of our learners are together, whether you're on site or you're at home Zooming in.
Thank you.
Kiana, a question.
Of course.
What was what was an alternate scenario studied, or what was the driver for selecting this schedule? What I mean by that is you have cohort A from 9 to 11:30 on both Mondays and Tuesday. What was the driver that wouldn't have a cohort B for in-person as well on the Monday, Tuesdays, and repeat that on Thursday, Friday, so that both cohorts come in on the same day? For example, cohort A is in person from 9 to 11:30, an hour break in between, and then bring cohort B in person on Monday and then repeat that Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday? What would be the driver? Because for me, I mean, this is coming back to school. This is showing the in-person on-site 2.5 hours, which is a total of 5 hours per week of in class. Could that not be repeated so that they're coming to school every day except the Wednesday here, which it seems to be a common one for all of them, kind of a catch up?
We definitely crafted that very much like the elementary schedule, almost that AM PM model.
Right.
The problem is the cohort guidelines and the number of cohorts that you can belong to and teachers could visit. So if we did an AM PM model, you would, as a teacher or as a student, I'll go teacher, sorry, that's the better one. You would have pod, and then you'd have period 1 and you'd have period 3. And that would be your AM, and then you'd have to see period 1 in the PM and period 3 again in the PM. And that's more cohorts than we're allowed to see as a teacher. So right now it's 2 cohorts, but the expectation with guideline changes coming out and health ordinance that it will be moved to 3 cohorts that a teacher could interact with and expose in a day. So unfortunately, we would love that AM PM model, and we have a schedule that models that out, but we just right now we currently can't do that.
Right. And instruction is delivered differently at high school, at middle schools than it is in elementaries. Because okay. All right. Thank you.
If there are no more questions on the hybrid, just in case we're wondering where our distance learners are fitting in, the next slide, Mr. Cornett will talk about the distance learning schedule.
All right, thanks, Kiana. Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for giving Kiana and myself a chance to present our proposed hybrid schedule. We're incredibly excited about the schedule, and we're even more excited to get our students back on campus as soon as we can. My slide has a lot less colors than Kiana, so it should hopefully be a little easier to process, and I can go through it quite smoothly, I hope. I want to start off first by reiterating what Kiana said is keeping students first in all of our decision making and creating the 1,000,001 schedules that we've created. The probably #1 request we received from parents, caretakers, even students and teachers has been, don't forget about our distance learning kids. For those of you that may not know, a middle school master schedule is insane. It has 37 teachers, 987 students, 6 courses per student. To create a hybrid schedule, you're essentially shaking that all up. And what some schools are doing that we've observed at the many different plans we've looked at from other schools is you take all those distance learning students and you put them in a distance learning academy with a teacher, and they assign them coursework through an online university. For example, Arizona State University, which is a program we do have a partnership, but that was the absolute last thing we wanted to do as far as taking away all the students' teachers for the remaining 4th quarter and have them essentially do asynchronous work. That was not an option. So the problem was the challenge was how do we create a hybrid schedule that still keeps our distance learning kids equitable to our in-person students. And this is the schedule that we feel we found a way to do that. So if I'm a student who's a distance learning only student, as Kiana said, I'm going to kick off every day at 8:30 a.m. from home in my pod class. That is the only thing that is staying consistent from our current distance learning bell schedule. And it's something that's working really well for us as far as getting kids into a routine every morning, seeing the same group of 32 classmates, the same teacher every day. We're able to keep that consistent. And like Kiana mentioned, it's where we're hitting our wellness lessons, our math practice, our social emotional, our anti-bullying. All of those are going to be able to stay in place for all students for the remainder of the year. Also want to talk about morning routine. So I've led now over 40 attendance review meetings for students who have had some challenges with attending distance learning. And I would say almost every single one of them had a commonality with a lack of a morning routine. Not waking up on time, not using an alarm clock, not conducting personal hygiene, not having proper nutrition, not having your materials organized, and then not being able to go to pod and starting the day off on the wrong foot. So with keeping pod in place, notice our distance learning students aren't logging in for their first class until 12:25. We want to prevent them from sleeping in until 12:25, which our middle schoolers, if they have the opportunity to do, would very likely love to do. And keep them in that morning routine and to develop those atomic habits that are going to keep them successful throughout high school, college, and beyond. So that is why we still were able to keep the pod, and we wanted to keep the pod, and why it's still first thing in the morning. From 9 to 11:30, just like our cohort A and B students who are not on campus for their 2 days a week, this is where our distance learning only students are going to be conducting independent practice, asynchronous, hopefully synchronous PE and elective time. We have that lunch built in there. And then this is where our distance learning students are logging in for their live instruction at home, block schedule, period 1 and 3. Just like our cohort A and B students, they're getting the exact same lesson. They're just getting it at home with 10-minute breaks to factor in screen time so that we're not having our kids sit in front of a screen for that entire duration without at least 2 10-minute breaks factored in there. And then finishing off the day the same as the cohort A and B students with an opportunity to hop into student support time for any of their teachers to receive some additional support. That pattern continues, as you can see, just throughout the week. Instead of coming on campus 2 days a week, they're taking their classes remotely at home live. And if we were to blend these colors of these afternoon sections, we would have some of those reds and the greens and oranges mixed in, because the distance learning only students are taking classes with the cohort A and B students who didn't attend campus in person for that day. Otherwise, the Wednesday is the same there. As you can see, it's still coming in for pod with every other student in campus for that Wellness Wednesday, completing their independent work and elective and fitness time activities on that Wednesday. I think that's about it. I did want to reiterate just one last thing. The block periods for the afternoon are 55 minutes long. Currently, our block periods are 50 minutes long in our distance learning model. However, we are removing that stack schedule that we currently have and replacing it with our Wednesday asynchronous time, which also gives our teachers planning time, which was essential because in this current model, our core teachers lose their prep. They're teaching all morning and all afternoon with a 4-period schedule. In the past, they would have 6 periods. One of those periods would be a prep period. And that's one of the things that gets lost when you switch to a hybrid schedule and you only keep your core classes in check. And then lastly, just as Kiana mentioned with that student support time, we know that's one of the things that's really working well for our students in distance learning. But if we're anticipating 65 to 80% of our students returning, our class sizes are going to look between 12 and 16 for our on-campus students, where we're not going to have a need for these student support times, but they still are there for those that need it. So that just basically covers our distance learning only schedule, which if you to line up this one and the one Kiana pitched, they would fit perfectly right on top of each other in terms of the class times and the periods and the lunch and the pods and the student support times all lining up minute for minute.
I have a question.
Sure, Joanne.
So help me out. Thank you, Kevin and Kiana, both of you. Good presentations. Appreciate it. Are the teachers that are teaching in this 100% distance learning schedule completely separate from the teachers who are teaching the in-class model?
That's the beauty of it. We can, for almost every student, we're able to keep the same teachers, whether you're distance learning or you're on campus. So if I'm a English teacher on my Monday, I'm teaching my pod and my 2 periods in the morning on campus, and then I'm going to teach that same lesson to my distance learning students in the afternoon for the students that I've had the whole year.
So, and it's the same teacher teaching that same period 1 and 3 periods.
Exactly.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
We don't, in this schedule, we don't need like a distance learning academy, and we don't need a special distance learning teacher. They'll be covering both the in-person and distance learning.
Okay, good. Thank you. Wow, that's great.
Kevin, I had a question. I think you may have answered it. The live online periods, is that the reason that the live online periods are from 12:25 to 2:35 as opposed from 9 to 11:30?
Right, because the teachers are teaching both the morning lessons and the afternoon lessons, we wouldn't be able to have the distance learning students taking the classes at the same time as the on-site students are. That would be a different model that we also created schedules for, which would be a simultaneous learning model where there's Zoomers at home zooming into a live period of instruction on campus, and that also wasn't a direction that we felt was best for students or for our teachers.
Got it. I wanted to thank you, Kevin and Kiana. Obviously, there's a lot of thought behind this schedule. I know the middle school schedule's a challenge, as you indicated. So thank you both. This is well laid out.
Thank you.
Kevin,
Go ahead.
Someone had a question.
All right, I'll go. A couple questions, if I may. Again, yes, thank you. Well, I know there's been so many iterations of this. I know, Kiana, when we spoke some time ago, your concern of redoing every single student's schedule was overwhelming. But that's here you've retained their cohort, which is fantastic. So
we've retained their cohorts, their teams, and their teachers. We will still need to reprogram every student's schedule and create a new master schedule for a pod plus 4 classes. Right.
You're not off the hook then. Sorry about that.
Not fully, but almost.
So my two questions are these. I know the current Department of Public Health and other authorities are, maybe it's California, are the 2 cohorts. Do we know, and this might be a question for Dr. Silvers, do we have any indication when we will learn when 3 cohorts will be approved? We're dependent upon that for the schedule.
Yeah, I can answer. Nisha, you may jump in too, but they're looking at numbers and not necessarily cohorts. They're looking at stable groupings of no more than 100 students in a stable group, and that would be the max. And so, Nisha, do you just want to clarify that from our call this morning?
Correct. So once we bring back a full grade level, schools now are looking at groups and not cohorts. So what we mean by that is these stable groups, for instance, in the middle school would be, say, period 1 kiddos staying together in that group and traveling to their next period. What that means for a teacher is it's not so much how many groups they interact with in a day, but no more than 100 students total, or they're saying a maximum. So we don't have the exact language yet, but we are looking to ensure that we stay within that grouping consistency and not exceed that.
All right, great.
And Dr. Goldman, yeah, I was just going to share, Dr. Goldman, that has been a pretty clear directive or strong recommendation from the county that those numbers are that there is going to be really constricted numbers in terms of how many the total number of students per group. So again, the new order.
Is this? Forgive me, but obviously we can't implement that until this is official. So any clue, have they given us any indication when that will become so?
Hopefully tomorrow, but there's a lot of hope there. We hope that the new protocol and a new health order based on the current case rates may also be released tomorrow or this weekend.
All right, so great. And then my second question is, again, Kevin, kind of terrific. If you could you back up one slide? I'm still struggling to understand how the distance learning synchronizes, if you will, with the in-person learning. So can you walk us through where the distance learners are on this?
Sure. Our distance learners are always going to be where you see live online instruction. So for Monday, our distance learners will be doing live online periods 1 and 3 with cohort B online.
And then doing asynchronous in the morning? Correct,
yes. So they're doing their asynchronous, or as we're trying to plan out synchronous elective classes and PE and independent practice in the morning, and then we'll be zooming in with cohort B for Monday and Tuesday. And then they will be doing the same thing in the morning for Thursday, Friday, but then zooming in for live lessons within cohort A on Thursday and Friday.
And I'm sure lastly, let me get this one last thing and Roger will stop. It's my assumption that we do not want people to go back and forth once they make a choice, but would that be possible should they want to elect to change because of this model?
As you said, we would like a commitment. There is some flexibility within the model, though, because of the way it is structured, that should there need to be a change or a family that would need to possibly quarantine, they could slot into that distance learning.
Eileen, do you want to share sort of the process in terms of Schoolment and how we're going to actually get that information?
Right, and I can just tag on to that real quickly. We did send out a survey this morning. I was going to report on this, but we did send out a survey to the Dana families just asking to get a temperature check on interest in coming back to a hybrid schedule. And I haven't shared this with Kiana yet, so here we are. But, you know, in the elementary schools, we have about a 60% hybrid participation rate if you average all 3 elementary schools. At Dana, just in the last day, we had 382 responses. 54% have said they will come back. 23% would like more information on a schedule and then make a decision. And 23% said they would like to stay with distance learning. So not too far off what we're seeing with elementaries. So following this survey, which gives us a temperature check for the idea of scheduling, we're going to go ahead and follow what we did for the elementaries. We're going to send out an enrollment packet through Schoolment to all the families. It'll ask them to, you know, choose which program, give them information on both those schedules. So it was very successful with the elementaries. We had great participation. Families understood what we were asking, and partly because of course, the administrators were so good about explaining it. So I'll work with Kiana and Kevin on that and make sure it's all clear when it goes out, but it can go out anytime. We're pretty close to having that ready.
Which was a great transition into sort of the last slide for our presentation, which is just a timeline. As Dr. Harbeck mentioned, the family communication and selection piece, we're looking to launch as soon as possible because it does lead into the scheduling. As Dr. Goldman mentioned, we will have to reschedule our students into periods 1 through 4. Currently, they carry a 6-period bell schedule, and it will be reduced down to 4 scheduled periods. There are 4 core classes. And then from there, we will roster the cohorts into AB and distance learning. And then of course, family communication has to follow that with sharing those new schedules with our families, our reopening protocol presentations with all of our families for grade level specific. And of course, we really want to offer some 6th grade tours on site. We know our youngest dolphins haven't set foot on our campus, and we want to provide that opportunity before we launch this hybrid schedule to have them walk campus and see their classrooms and just welcome them because we're so joyous to see them. And at the bottom, you'll see ongoing through this entire timeline is prepping our facilities. We currently have every 6th grade classroom already ready to go with all of the PPE and signage, and desks are measured out. So we're continuing to do that right now in order to prep for this launch of our hybrid schedule. And that is all for our presentation, but if there are more questions, we're happy to answer them.
Mr. Bonwillis, I know you had a question, so please.
Yes, thank you, Neil. Kiana, would you please go back to the day schedule? Quick question, just for clarification here. So in staying with Monday, cohort A from 9 to 11:30, my question is around class size. Right now, we're looking at how many students in that cohort? 12, is it?
It sort of depends on the percentage.
Right.
So if right now, because we're dropping to 4 periods, our core classes will actually be larger than usual. It will sit around 40 students. But if we take into consideration possibly only 60% coming onto site, then that would make cohort A 12 students. If it goes up, obviously, to that 80 to 85%, we're looking at around 17 to 18 students in cohort A, and we can safely fit desks 6 feet apart, and they would still be able to work within the guidelines.
Okay. And then for those that are under the live online periods, what is their class size? Because I caught that there's also like a blending, right? When they say, for example, this cohort A is not in class, like physically on school site, there will be online doing some or joining the full distance learning, right? So is that cohort, those that are on distance learning, is their class size consistent at about 24 to 30 students across, like always? Is that what it shakes out to?
It does, yes. It will shake out to your online afternoon classes having between that 24, 28 to 30 students, which our teachers are currently running for distance learning and are quite proficient and very confident with their Zooming and live online lessons that way. It is a little bit of a numbers game. It will all come back to the percentage that are on site and those that remain distance learning.
Right. Okay, thank you. That answers my question. Thanks.
Thank you. I will stop sharing now.
So Dr. Silvers, thank you both very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Really well thought out, a very difficult task. And the fact that you've kept all the students together and both distance and hybrid and in person, it's just, thank you, well done. Dr. Silvers, a question of timing.
So I was going to share my report, looking to start the middle school on Monday, March 29th, and have our gates reopened.
Great. Any further questions for K squared?
No, thanks a lot for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Appreciate your leadership, guys. Really well done. Thank you.
Not very much. Thank
Yeah,
you.
we're very excited to have the kids come back.
Absolutely.
And I would just plant a seed that we always keep thinking and looking for ways to increase the amount of time on campus as things change and, you know, more vaccines and everything, that we are fluid and looking for ways to increase that time in the classroom. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Moore, as well. Any other, Dr. Silvers, any other comments on middle school at this point, or we'll wait for your comments later?
I'll wait for my comments. I just want to thank Kiana and Kevin. I know this has been quite a task and a jigsaw puzzle, to say the least, and definitely appreciate the support and the constant changing that they're having to deal with health orders and misinformation and all those things that are coming pretty quickly at them. So thank you both for that. Really appreciate it.
All right, then we will move ahead to committee updates. Any representatives, any board members have committee updates at this time? And I think we do have probably some cabinet updates, but any board members have any updates at this time?
I do, Neil.
Please go, Roger.
Okay, item 4.1 is the County Committee on School District Organization. I wanted to just make some comments with regards to congratulating our choice block petitioners on their commitment and dedication and perseverance for Measure A. For those that don't know, on March 2nd, the election was held and it passed. The community supported that by nearly 95%. I believe the last count that I saw was 351 yes to 19 no. So it passed overwhelmingly, and I wanted to congratulate all of the chief petitioners, all the people that supported that measure, and officially extend a very warm welcome to all the Choice Block residents to the Wiseburn Unified School District. Really looking forward. I know a lot of the students and parents already send their children here to Wiseburn, but making it official once the election is certified, I think those are probably the next steps, the certification of the election, and then making those arrangements to having everyone come to the Wiseburn Unified School District. I wanted to make sure that they knew they're obviously very, very welcome as a part of our school district. Looking forward to them joining us. I believe, Blake, it's going to be in the first, this upcoming year, the 21-22 year, where the district boundaries and things like that. There's still some technical things that need to happen, but that seems to be the official year, right, for the choice blocks to formally enter the boundaries of Wiseburn. So congratulations to the chief petitioners and welcome to Wiseburn. Absolutely.
That's great, Roger. And we have been working with, and we'll continue to work with our enrollment office, permit office, because it won't be permits anymore. There won't be a permit students anymore. And we're going to work with them over the next few weeks so that they have all the information they need. We did hold a family or parent information night, a few weeks ago with the choice block residents that are now, Wiseburn residents and want to make their move seamless into the district.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Neil, I think I have item 4.2. This is LA County School Trustees Association. Nothing new to report other than the next meeting is Monday, March 29th, and I'll attend that representing Wiseburn, and I'll have an update after that meeting. And that's
Thanks,
all for
Roger. Thank you for also your continuing support. Congratulations to Shavonda and Eddie, the chief petitioners of the choice blocks. And for those of you who don't know, this has been an ongoing issue for more than 60 years, maybe 70 plus years that they've been kind of working at this. And I must say, Eddie and Shavonda look really good.
They look really good.
Really good. So,
You're really good.
item 4.3 is the Weisburn Ed Foundation. Please check out weisburnedfoundation.org. They are working to support our community, supplement education, and of course, raise funds for our students. They do a terrific job. A quick shout out reminder for Rock Around the Block, WEF's Rock Around the Block on May 1st. There'll be a different event this year. They're going to work with Mr. Harwell regarding a music program online. There will be the online auction. And they're looking at having literally a Rock Around the Block drive around with the school mascots. That should be fun visiting our neighborhood. So good for them and more to come. They will have their next meeting on Tuesday. I do plan to attend this as our representative. However, and just FYO, if you're listening, I may be late or precluded due to a conflict with the local Classrooms Funding Authority board meeting, which also is that evening. Any others? I know a budget committee. I believe we have a date upcoming.
Did we get a date?
So
We
Dave,
have
we
not
were-
met yet, so we'll,
No, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, we had to cancel the meeting scheduled for
Right.
earlier in March, but we're looking at scheduling another meeting for the week after spring break. So look for an email coming from me tomorrow to schedule that.
Perfect. Thank you. Facilities Committee, 4.5.
Nothing to report, Neil, tonight. We're still obviously focused on the reopening, but I think we will plan for an upcoming date here soon.
Are the sports able to start yet? I think I lost lock on that.
So are we talking youth sports?
I'm
or
sorry. Yeah,
CIF?
are the fields going to be used for Little League and so forth? Or what's
Yes.
happening?
Yeah, so now youth sports is able to resume under certain circumstances as well, safety protocols and all of those things, as well as a lot of CIF sports we're starting to see reopen. Most CIF sports now are starting to reopen as well. So hopefully you see Little Leaguers and AYSO soccer players and all of that on the fields here soon.
Because I think the fields have still been empty, right?
Pretty much. Other than some maintenance, I know Little League has started some maintenance on the Dana fields just to start preparing
Yes,
them.
I've seen them. Okay, good.
Joanne, I think April 1st is the target date of.
Okay, thank you,
Weisburn.
Nelson. Yeah.
And you know, I could add one other item. Dr. Goldman is at the next board meeting. I would like to bring our next regularly scheduled board meeting. I would like to bring the facilities master plan back to the board to consider and to hopefully approve so that we could use that as a foundation for our future discussions. We know it's iterative, and as time goes on and as we kind of take a look back, just sort of the caveat is that we've spent the last year in distance learning, and so maybe some of the facilities decisions that we made a year ago are going to be different than what we know now and what we may want now. So we will have to continue the conversation, but I would ask the board to consider adopting the master plan as a baseline, and then as we start meeting as a facilities committee, that we could start tailoring it for the future and start figuring out next steps.
Okay, thank you. We will look forward to that next meeting. All right, the Rec and Communications Community Committee, rather, that probably would have addressed the issues, Joanne, you brought up earlier. Anything else there from anyone?
Nothing else at this time, Neil, to report.
Great. And then lastly, on the Articulation Committee, as we mentioned, I may have mentioned, I may not have mentioned this in a public meeting. I've been thinking about this. This is our connection with Da Vinci, where the concept is we both have two representatives of our respective boards, making sure we work well and communicate and strategize together for the future. So I propose we change the name from the DV Articulation Committee to the DV Strategic Partnership Committee, more inclusive of what we're trying to accomplish. So if with no objections, I'd like to move that forward for future meetings. All right, let us move on to information. And after hearing from some of the board members and having the opportunity to get some feedback, I would like to share an opening remark, and then we'll share from everybody. And that, first of all, I do want to again comment, visiting the schools. So many of you on this call here at the cabinet and on the board visited the schools for the opening in Cabrillo and Anza. It was, again, super positive. Thank you to the middle school folks, counselors and such, for all hands on deck, the district office really coming in. It really was a Team Wiseburn in action and fun to see. Now, relative to the comments the board has shared with me, and so many of you have shared with us regarding concerns about Da Vinci high schools and reopening high schools, and in our role as authorizers and being responsive to the community's desire for to be reopening, you have spoken loudly. We hear you, and our stance, as you know, TK through 8 in our authority has to bring in within our authority has been to bring students back, as well as retain a distance learning option. As representatives of the community and authorizers of Da Vinci, we feel an obligation to strongly encourage the Da Vinci board and the leadership to reopen for in-person learning in a hybrid option, while again retaining a full distance option. I am pleased to again be meeting with the president of the DV board, Dr. Brand, tomorrow. I look forward to furthering that conversation, and thank you and thank them for that opportunity. With that said, I will turn to Mr. Martinez for your comments, please.
Thank you, Neil. I had an opportunity to attend the town hall meeting at both Cabrillo and Burnett last week on March 2nd. And I just want to take an opportunity to really commend the site administration and the district administration for a wonderful presentation. I thought it was excellent, well done. It really laid out a plan and the information that was necessary for the parents and the community. And as a result, I think we had a very successful reopening. So I want to commend, I didn't get a chance to attend the ANZA town hall meeting, happened to be at the same time, but again, just a sincere thank you to everybody involved. And I think that really led to a successful reopening. With that, I had a chance to see the plans implemented today. I had a wonderful site visit at ANZA Elementary School. And I think, as all my colleagues have shared here, it was exciting. You could see the smiles coming through the mask of the little kiddos, and the teachers are happy to be back. And it was just the excitement, very positive, wonderful day, and just really enjoyed it. And I'm, this is what we serve. This is the reason we serve on the board. So thank you all for that. And then I also wanted to take just a quick opportunity also to recognize Shavonda and Eddie and all the chief petitioners throughout the years for their commitment and their persistence. As Roger said, you've always been part of Wiseburn, and now it's official. So certainly welcome to them and the Wiseburn residents there. And then last but not least here, it's been an honor to serve on the board here, especially, when you go through a process like this, where it's been, this is way, I could share with you, it's weighed on myself and our colleagues in trying to really reopen. This has been a difficult situation. And I know it's been difficult for everybody, the district, site administration. I mean, we've asked the teachers and the administration to pivot twice in the middle of a school year, almost year to the day, right? Not an easy task. It's been difficult, but I've been just, as you reflect back on it, the process has worked, and we've collaborated and worked well together, and as a result of that, we're now seeing the successful reopenings, and kids are coming back. And next week we start 3 to 5, and then and Blake just mentioned we're looking to start the middle school. So it's exciting. Again, it really takes a village to do this, and I just want to thank everybody that's been involved. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank you to the parents for their patience and understanding. I know that has not been easy, and also just happy to see the kids back in school. And I think I share the same sentiments that Neil did with regards to the high school. This is a difficult moment. We've gone through it. The high school, probably a little bit of a disadvantage in terms of the guidelines coming out of LA County. So I certainly want to do everything from my end to really help them kind of get to the point where we're at. And if we could share our plans with them, and if that helps them on their way to reopening. We'll do our part. So I share what Neil just said. We've heard the community, and I think the community certainly wants the high school students back in school. I'm a parent of one high school student and certainly would like to see him back. So I could tell you from a board member and a parent perspective, I will do everything to help out in that effort and hopefully help the high school with their reopening plans as well. Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Ms. Canetta.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Neil. I also had a chance to participate in some of the school reopening activities this week. Certainly the first day that we reopened, both at Cabrillo and at Anza. The excitement, the positive energy, the enthusiasm is amazing. It was really gratifying. Everybody was happy. Everybody was a little scared. Everybody was exhausted. It was just what you would expect a first day back to school would be. And the staff, the teachers, the principals, all that planning, all these meetings we had, all the planning that everybody did really paid off. I had a chance to spend about an hour to an hour and a half this afternoon at Anza. And thankfully, Principal Paredes spent time with me, and we walked into every classroom that was in session. And I stayed also to see dismissal because I wanted to see it in action as the, how's it all working and so on. It was like they've been doing it every day of their lives. There were no mistakes. There were no problems. There was no anxiety. It was great. One of my favorite moments was when the kindergartners were coming out and the teacher was helping them figure out where they were to stand as they were being picked up. And she said, okay, everybody needs to stand on a dot, because there's little dots painted into the bricks there. And about 4 students all tried to stand on the same dot. Everybody needs to stand on their own dot, not on the same dot. It was priceless. It was just, anyway, I want to commend everyone. Our community, especially the parents, have been fabulous in the what is the notoriously troublesome time of pickup and drop off. They have been so cooperative and just, like they do it every day. It's been great. And I really appreciate Principal Paredes taking me around this afternoon and helping me go into the individual classrooms. Of course, the students are so avidly paying attention, all their little masks on. It's really gratifying. And as Nelson said, this is why we serve. This is, to see this in action, to see the students and the teachers who are also full of enthusiasm and so on. It's just, this is why we serve. So congratulations to everyone and thank everyone for all the pieces that came together. I'm also excited that Right at School is going to start pretty soon. Our daycare option or school childcare option, however you want to call it, for the district. I think that's going to round out the offerings that we have for the families and the students. I think I had a chance to attend part of their opening remarks and so on last night too. We're very excited about that program. It sounds like a lot of our previous daycare folks are actually going to be part of the Right at School opportunity. So that's exciting too. I think that's another great achievement for the district. I think that's great. And thank you, Dr. Silvers, because I know that was sort of a dream that we had and it's coming to fruition. Appreciate that. And I think, looking forward to Dana starting, looking forward to 3 through 5 starting. I did not have a chance to attend the coffee truck today at Anza. I had hoped I would be able to do that, but I couldn't quite get there between 11 and 12:30. I didn't get there till about 1:30, 2 o'clock. So I missed that. I'm sure that was well received. Aren't we lucky that it wasn't Wednesday when we tried to do that? It was pouring rain. Anyway, and I, as well as to to also follow on the footsteps of Nelson, say that we're really looking forward to Da Vinci being able to come back as well, and whatever it takes to do that, and whatever help we might be able to offer, we're certainly there for them as well. Thanks. That's it.
Thank you, Joanne. Mr. Mora.
Thank you, Dr. Goldman. You know, my fellow board members have said it very well. It's exciting to have the kids back on campus. That's why we do this, and it's great to be able to do it the old-fashioned way again. I also want to mention thank you to the custodians, to the aides, you know, everyone else who's involved in this. Of course, the teachers and administration, but you know, it takes a village and everybody's pitching in, and that's how this is happening. And you know, I'm very grateful for everyone's contributions and everyone's willingness to help. You know, as I stated earlier, there's nothing more important to me than having more time for the kids in the classroom. And I hope that we continue to strive to do that in every grade level. And I'm very excited to bring 3 to 5 back and 6 to 8 back and bring the kids back safely back to school. So that's the goal. And yes, if the high school needs any help from us, very willing to help. And we're here to assist. So thank you, Dr. Goldman.
Thank you, Israel. Appreciate it. Mr. Banuelos.
Thank you, Dr. Goldman. Very similarly, I had an opportunity to attend the Cabrillo cohort B for their return to school on Monday, and I wanted to see a combination, right? One of the return to school and then a dismissal. So I was able to see the dismissal over at ANZA as well, and it really does remind us how wonderful it is to be a part of the education system, to see all of our students returning back. It's a great reminder of why we do what we do, right? And it's just wonderful to see the smiles and those, in some cases, the anxiety of some of the students for coming back, but really a positive attitude and energy. And I definitely want to say thank you to everyone that's participated and contributed to making this a successful open, to our teachers, caregivers, parents, the administrators, of course, and all of our custodial staff, and also to the students. You know, the students that have been out of the classroom for about a year, right? Talk about a change in their learning cycle as well, and having to be in a distance learning model for nearly a year and then seeing them come back. It's wonderful. Definitely good signs of our schools returning to, I guess, I'll just use the word normal, or back to the classroom, if you could call it that. We'll see what the future holds, but it is exciting to be taking these steps for our TK2. Looking forward to grades 3 to 5 at 138th and ANZA opening as well this coming Monday on the 15th. And as you can see, we have a phased approach. So it's nice to see also that the March 29th for the rest of our middle school and the presentation that we received today. I do like the 29th date as well, because it's also the start of a new quarter. And there's a lot of work that needs to happen in order to reshuffle all the schedules. So the 29th date also makes sense. And so I like that staggered approach as we've been implementing. Again, thank you to all of our staff and our administrators for putting together such a great plan. Also, I used to serve on the Da Vinci board. Don't currently serve on the Da Vinci board now, but definitely anything that's needed in terms of support or collaboration and work with with Da Vinci schools, we're here to support as well, and looking forward to that continued dialogue and conversation to see what those services look like and what guidelines and restrictions they're under for that opening, and seeking to understand that to see how we can facilitate and support that effort as well. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Banuelos. Thank you all. I want to just also do a shout out to my fellow board members for your engagement, your participation throughout. It is a privilege to serve with you all, and it's a credit to our community. Thank you all very, very much. I also want to comment. Joanne, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I wanted to add something to what I said before, but I can, if you want.
Fine. Go ahead.
One of the things that Principal Paredes and I talked about too, while we're all happy to have children back in the classroom and teachers back in the classroom, there were lessons learned, and there were a lot of good ideas and a lot of good work that came out of the distance learning situation that we're actually still experiencing and and that we did experience. And we talked about doing a session of either calling it lessons learned or ideas coming out of distance learning that really were beneficial to the students and the educational community that, excuse me, that we might want to continue or build on as we work on our curriculum, going forward. So I don't want us to feel like we lost all that time, or, that there wasn't good learning and good instruction going on during that time. And I think there were a lot of valuable lessons that we learned, and I don't want to lose those. We want to build on that. So I don't know what that looks like, and maybe Dr. Silvers and Dr. Harbeck can help us figure out that. But how do we capture the positive parts of distance learning that we might be able to use, whether we're distance learning or not? Anyway, I just wanted to say that.
I absolutely agree. Thank you. One thing also, Joanne, you mentioned was the coffee cart that's being kind of a small gesture to say thank you to the staff and the teachers at all the areas. As part of our fiduciary responsibility, I want to give some shout out for the cabinet for doing that, and also to Blake and I think Nisha, the leadership, that doing this to be ensure that we are doing this as part of our fiduciary responsibility, not to have done this with ADA or public funds. We're just making sure we're using public funds appropriately and honoring the ADA money that comes not for that purpose. So thank you very much.
I have one quick comment. First of all, I wanted to thank Albert and Katie because they spent quite a bit of time with me today at ANZA. So thank you to the both of them. The one item that I wanted to discuss real quick, and I didn't want to forget that Joanne kind of reminded me about, right now as we've opened K-2 at both Cabrillo and ANZA, we're using a lot of resources and aids from different school sites and even the district. And as we open 3 to 5 and then 6 to 8, I want to make sure that we're still going to need those resources at the school sites. So I want to make sure that we have a plan for that, because right now my understanding is we're using aids, for example, from Dana at ANZA for the pickup and drop off. So when Dana Middle School opens up, I'm sure those aids may go back. So I just want to make sure that we don't lose sight that, as we start opening up more of the school sites, that we may need some more resources. So just wanted to keep note of that, and I didn't want to forget about that, and since Joanne kind of reminded me about that discussion.
Okay, thank you. We will now move to the cabinet. Tonight is the day to learn from Mr. Wilson's expertise repeatedly. So start us off, Dave.
Thank you, Dr. Goldman. Wendy, can I share my screen? So tonight we'll go over the second interim report. The purpose of this presentation is to have the board approve the 2021 second interim report as presented. Per Ed Code, school districts must report financial data twice a year, the first interim by December 15th and the second interim by March 15th. So tonight we're going to discuss 1, general overview and context of financial reporting, 2, assumptions and why we have assumptions, 3, we will compare the first interim to the second interim and highlight the changes to the budget. We'll talk about the true operating surplus. We'll go over our multi-year projections and our reserve levels, and then we'll talk next steps. So, excuse me. This slide is an overview of school district's financial reporting cycle. We start the year, with the budget adoption by June 30th for the following fiscal year, beginning July 1. Then in September, by September 15th, the board approves the unaudited actuals from the prior fiscal year. At first interim, it's due by, like I said, December 15th, and it's actuals from July 1st through October 31st. In a normal year, we approve or the board approves or accepts the audit from the prior year by December 15th. Due to COVID, they've delayed that, and now this year it's required to be adopted or approved by the board by December 31st. And so we'll be bringing back the 1920 audit at March 25th meeting. And so here we are now, right now, second interim due by March 15th, and it's the actuals from July 1 through January 31st. I just want to comment, budgets are not static. They're always needing tuning and in refinement. So why are we here? Again, 2 reporting periods, first interim, second interim. The report certifies the financial condition of the district for the current year and 2 subsequent years. So 2021, then 21-22 and 22-23. There's 3 possible certifications. A positive certification, district will meet its financial obligations in the current and 2 subsequent years. A qualified certification, district may not meet its financial obligations in the current and 2 subsequent years. And then thirdly, a negative certification, district will not meet its financial obligations in the current and 2 subsequent years. Based on the second interim report presented, we recommend filing a positive certification. So let's talk about assumptions. Due to timing of the adoption of the state budget, the governor has to sign it by June 30th, which is in the same alignment with how school districts have to same timing that the school districts have to approve their budget. So, we're building our budget in May and June based on a California state budget that hasn't been adopted. So there's a lot of assumptions that go in that financial officers have to make. Some of those assumptions could be, how much is the revenue will the state and federal government give us in the fiscal year? What will enrollment be? We don't really know enrollment until late August, September. And then sometimes when we're putting our budget together in May and June for the following July fiscal year, there's a lot of times we don't know the salaries and the costs of the teachers and the staff that we're going to hire. So those are the kind of assumptions that are put into these budgets, and they're refined throughout the year, first interim, second interim, and then estimated actuals. And we get our information from School Services of California, from FICMAT, which is the Fiscal Crisis and Management Assistance Team. The County Office of Education provides guidance and recommendations. We also look at current revenues and expenditures to date. We look at historical trends. The county helps us out with local control funding formula, updated revenue projections, and then we'll look at actual enrollment and a review of attendance to date for the P2 average daily attendance estimate. So second interim assumptions change from the first interim. Assumes a no cost of living in the current year for local control funding formula. In January, the governor proposed a 3.84% COLA for next year, which is a combination of the COLA we should have got in this year plus the COLA for next year. So that's a pretty significant COLA. It's very likely we'll get that. In 22-23, I included a 2.98% COLA. It's less likely that likely, okay, it's not as likely as the 3.84, but we'll continue to monitor that. That's still 2 years out. Assumes no change in enrollment. So this year our enrollment was 2498, pretty flat. I think the prior year was 2506. So we're not seeing a huge decrease or increase in enrollment. We just don't know what's going to happen next year with if we come back full time, our kids going to remain distance learning or join a charter school or private schools. So that's just a really conservative assumption of no enrollment change. What we've seen in the last couple of years is our unduplicated pupil percentage decreasing, and that's our foster youth, our English language learners, and our students that qualify for free and reduced lunches. So this year, the assumption was about 40.75% of our students are in that unduplicated or UPP number. Next year, I'm projecting down to 38.9%. And then in 22-23 down to 36.8%. And what that effectively does is it reduces our supplemental funding. So this year we did see, and I'll get to that in a different slide, but we did see a decrease in $70,000 in supplemental funding from what we originally projected. And that's because we didn't have as much unduplicated pupil percentage as we thought we would when the budget was adopted. Some CalSTRS assumptions. 16.15 is the employer paid contribution for the current year. We see a little reprieve next year. It goes down to 15.92. And then in 22-23, it jumps up, almost 3%, almost 2%, a little bit more than 2% to 18%. And then CalPERS is also increasing the employer paid contributions to our classified members. So this year it's 20.7%. Next year it's projected to go to 23%. And then in the following year, 26.3%. And I just want to highlight those 2 increases in that 22-23 year. Based on current salary levels, it's about a $400,000 increase to our expenses. So pretty significant increase. Wow. We did assume $865,000 in additional one-time COVID relief funds. And that was actually from the legislation that Trump signed into law back in December. It's the ESSER round 2 of funding. So I did include $865,000 in next year's budget that we'll go over.
Dave, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
If you don't mind, go back to the other
Yep.
slide. The CalPERS and CalSTRS contributions, are they actually, those dollars are removed from our budget and put into some other account into a CalSTRS and a CalPERS account somewhat? So
Correct.
it's totally out of our ability to do anything with that money, right?
That's correct. Yeah, it's required, and so we send those payments to CalSTRS and CalPERS. They invested in different stocks, bonds, investments, and that helps pay for the certificated people that have retired and the classified people that have retired. So yeah, it's out of our control. There's nothing that we can do. We're kind of beholden to that.
Of course. Thank you.
Okay. So then I just want to go over the changes, and I just want to preface this slide by, this was, an absolutely crazy year. I've never seen such fluctuations in my budgeted numbers, and that's because there was just so many unknowns this year. Usually we don't see like, 487,000 change from the first interim to the second interim, but again, a lot of moving parts this year. And I'm not the only CBO that was struggling with this. We have a regional CBO meeting where we all commiserate with each other. So yeah, just a crazy year. So hopefully it gets back to somewhat of a new normal next year. So this first column is our first interim budget, and then this second column is our second interim, and then the variance. So we saw LCFF revenue go down by $70,000 projected, and that's because what I think and what a lot of other CBOs think is that, and this is not just to Weisburn, this is actually an article came out statewide, that because students got free lunches or granted free lunches, regardless of their socioeconomic status, there was no reason to apply for free and reduced applications. We did do a huge push. We sent letters, the principals have emailed and sent correspondence to the families. Hey, even though, it's free, this is funding to us. So we did see our unduplicated pupil numbers go down about 100, I think, compared to last year, which equates to about a $70,000 loss. So it is what it is, I guess. Other state revenue down by about $2,000, and that's just to reflect an updated grant award. And then other local revenue, an increase of $67,500. That's to increase reflected update interest earned, and as well as a COTSIN grant. Certificated salaries decreases by about $131,000, and that's because this year, quite frankly, we haven't used a lot of substitute costs. And so, just refining that budget. Again, when we did the July 1 budget in the first interim, we weren't sure what to expect. So now we're just kind of fine tuning these numbers. Classified salaries goes down by $52,000. That's to reflect less instructional aid and noon duty aid costs. Employee benefits down about $18,500. That's to reflect the statutory benefits that were associated with the two areas above. Books and supplies down by about $487,000. This is to reflect updated projections. Really, we had a lot less operational supplies, less COVID items than I thought we were going to buy. We thought we were going to buy, a few $100,000 worth of smart boards. But we didn't do that. So just really fine tuning these budgets. Services and other expenses, an increase of $351,000. This to reflect online instructional costs. We also are leasing. I thought it was going to be paid out of the Fund 63, which is our child development fund, but because we have no tuition coming in for that, that portable building we're leasing at Del Air, had to bring it into the general fund. Yeah, I have to figure out how we're going to figure that out in the future. Capital outlay increases $293,000. That's to reflect bipolar ionization that we just recently approved, some painting projects at Cabrillo, and then we also have a public address and clock system install at Anza. So the variance from first interim to second interim looks like we have a little bit bigger of a surplus, which I'll go over next.
Dave,
so I wanted to show you the true up. Yes, sorry.
Before you leave that page, I want to go back to the unduplicated pupils, and it's relative to the last slide, but you don't have to go there. we
Yeah.
were projecting 40 and then less from 40. It's my understanding 40 is the magic number about tracking usage of funds for unduplicated students. Is that correct?
That's
Does this
correct.
change our utilization and required tracking relative to the future, and how impactful is that?
So certainly, and Eileen could jump in if I'm misspeaking, but I believe once you get under 40%, I think you have to apply for a waiver, but you can't spend that money on a school-wide basis. You now have to. Right now, we're using that supplemental funding on a school-wide basis to really improve services to all students. And once it goes under 40%, if without the waiver, I believe you have to use it for those targeted kids.
Right, but thank you, Dave. We've continued to submit that waiver, and we did submit it this year. So even though we're below, we're able to continue with our programs.
Do we have any indication? Thank you. Good to know. Do we have any indication or expectation at what level that waiver will no longer be approved, or would you expect moving forward at any level it will be?
I think the latter.
Yeah, I would agree.
I didn't hear you, Dave. I'm sorry.
I said the latter. The latter.
I heard the latter, but I don't remember which order I said them in. So
that the waiver will be approved and hopefully, fingers crossed, indefinitely.
Oh, wonderful. I like the latter. Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay. Go ahead.
Moving on. So I really wanted to show you. So on paper, you see, wow, second interim, we're showing this huge surplus of $853,000. That's not the case. We really have to look at the true operating surplus. So here's the combined. If you're looking at it on paper, we see a surplus of $853,000, but we need to factor in some one-time revenue. So this year we got just over almost $1.7 million in federal and state one-time funds related to COVID. We had some one-time expenses this year. Certificated salaries, $235,000. That was the 5 professional development days at the beginning of the year. Employee benefits, $60,000 that were associated with those 5 PD days. Books and supplies, about $500K. That was COVID related. Services and other expenses, again, $450,000 in what we think is one-time expenses due to COVID. A lot of online instructional materials and things like that. Capital outlay, we think about one time, $220,000, and that's the bipolar ionization project. So then you're saying, okay, the true surplus is $231,000, but you also have to factor in, we had some one-time savings this year. We had one-time savings of about $150,000, and that's less subs. $120,000, I think, in one-time savings, less instructional and noon duty aides. $56,000 in employee benefits, one-time savings associated with these two above. And then books and supplies, about $100,000 in one-time savings, just less operational costs this year, less instructional supplies. So then we're looking at a true surplus of about $196,000. Multi-year projections. These include step and column, the PERS and STIRS rate changes, as well as estimated COLAs. So here's our 2021, this first column. We're showing an $853,000 surplus on paper. Our reserve for economic uncertainties, just Fund 01, 8.2. If we include Fund 17, it jumps up to 10. If we include Fund 20, it goes up to 19.3. I think when I close out the year, I'll be using more restricted funds than unrestricted funds. I think this number gets closer to 11 to 12% in the current year. Next year, the 21-22 included that 3.84% COLA. We're showing a surplus of $1,077,000, which also assumes $865,000 in one-time COVID funds that will come next year. So then we're showing a 12% reserve with Fund 17, 13.8, and then with Fund 20, 23.2. And then for the 22-23 year, a slight deficit of $12,500. Again, that's the, like I mentioned in a previous slide, about $400,000 of an increase to our STIRS and PERS employer contributions. This is a long ways out. A lot can change between now and this, so I wouldn't be too concerned with this small deficit. We can always budget committee discussions and see how we can actually make that a surplus or closer to a break-even budget. So this year we're going to see our reserves projected to go down a little bit to 11.6%. With Fund 17, 13.4, with Fund 20, 22.6.
Dave, can I ask a couple questions? Can you go back
Yes,
to
sir.
that slide?
Yes, sir.
So first question on 2021, did you have any projection for the Relief Act, or is that still going to be coming in addition to this?
So the only thing that I included was $865,000 that was associated with the Trump bill in December. Over the last week, 10 days, we now know that we're getting 2 reopening grants for a total of $2.2 million. We do have to submit a plan to the board. It has to be board approved by June 1. That money will come in partially, I think this year, and I didn't include it in the multiple year projections because there wasn't a lot of details on it, but it looks like we'll get some of that funding, that 2.2 million in May, and then so the rest in August. And like I said, that the reopening grants are about $2.2 million. And then President Biden today signed that bill, 1.9 trillion. We're expected to get 1.9 in ESSER 3 funds. So we're looking at almost $5 million in additional one-time revenues in this 21-22 year. So that's not included in the surplus.
And Dave, does that have a time frame you have to spend it? Is that has to be spent?
Yeah, so some of the funds have to be spent by September of 21. Some of the other funds are September of 23. So it's across the board. I was talking to Dr. Harbeck today. You know, we got to figure out a way to spend $5 million. You know, and some of these grants, like the reopening grants, is really for targeted instruction. How can you increase the instructional day? We're talking about, you know, maybe a really, you know, great summer school program that we can get these kids caught up with. So we're starting initial discussions on how we're going to really invest those one-time funds so they are long-lasting and really impact our students in a positive way.
Yeah, I second the motion on a robust summer program. One last question, Dave. What COLA assumptions did you make on both these years?
So current year, 0 COLA, 21-22, 3.84, which I think is very likely according to, you know, school services and FCMAT, and then a 2.98% COLA in 22-23. I would just say it's not as likely as a 3.84, and that's because, you know, it's still a couple years out, and who knows if the state recovers. Who knows what the state's finances are in that second subsequent year.
Yeah, great information, Dave. Thank you.
Sure.
I have a question, Dave, too, going with the one-time funding. Did the numbers that you quoted a couple of minutes ago include the incentive that I think is going to be in place for reopening middle school by April 1st?
So the only thing I included in 21-22 was the $865,000, which was related to the bill that Trump signed in December. So I haven't included the reopening grants of 2.2 million, and I haven't included what was signed today, another 1.9 million.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll build that into the July 1 budget. We'll have a better idea of you know, what we're going to spend that money on, and if there's any strings attached to that money as well.
Sure.
We'll get more detail.
And once again, it's one-time money, so it's great to have, and certainly will be, you know, implemented properly. But you can't. It's, you know, it's a one-time thing.
You don't want to tie ongoing costs to one-time revenue.
Right. Thank you.
Sure. Oops. Next steps. So continued development and refinement of the 21-22 LCAP, and I'll work with Dr. Harbeck. I believe we have a meeting, our first LCAP meeting on the 23rd of this month. Like I said, we're going to have the annual audit presented to the board on March 25th. We've already signed up for school services May revise, and we'll have a better idea if that 3.84% COLA is going to stick. Is it going to increase, decrease? Any other additional one-time funds that might be on the horizon. In June, we'll have a public hearing for the LCAP and our 21-22 budget. And then in June, before July 1, the board will approve both of those.
What a good presentation, Dave. Thank you. That was really well done. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. If there's any other questions, if not, then that concludes my presentation.
Excellent presentation, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you, Nelson.
We'll be hearing more from Mr. Wilson shortly. Before we move on, it's been brought to my attention that we actually did have a public comment that got in right under the wire just before we began. I just became aware of it. So let me back up for a moment. Ms. Subaki, if you would read the one public comment to get us back on track.
It's a public comment from Brandy Garcia. I, Brandy Garcia, a teacher at Dana Middle School, stand together with Amy Glotz, Scott Wynn, Maria Garcia, Tricia Owens, Carol Martinez, Candy Gray, Jessica Aguilar Huff, and Luis Gomez in saying that the current Dana Middle School schedule was developed just by admin. Every other district and the other sites in Weisburn got teacher input or let them vote on a schedule. I understand it may not be a negotiable point, but our expertise as educators and as people who see our students every day isn't being considered. This accelerated timeline of Dana's return is being pushed based on our students' mental health, which will likely suffer more with drastic changes right before spring break due to a new schedule and rush into a different environment. As teachers, we feel that the influence of money is a big reason for the opening, as we do not feel heard and feel that we are being forced into something that we do not see as good for students or education. We cannot in good conscience say yes to coming back on March 29th, as this is something that we do not think is in the best interest of our kids. If we were to come back after spring break and use the 4 days prior to spring break to plan and prepare well, then we can help teachers and students with a smoother transition into bringing our students safely, both physically and emotionally, back to campus. Our kids are learning, and we know that distance learning is not perfect learning, but waiting 4 days so we can have a good plan for them is not a loss, but rather a gain to be prepared mentally, physically, and scholastically. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you. We'll now return to our regularly scheduled timing and continue with our Director of Psychological Services, Ms. Mazzarella.
Okay, I just wanted to share that. Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry. I just, I'm so excited about school reopening. I'm just thrilled that we're doing that. And so I just wanted to say that we also are in the process of, while that's been going on, Karen Chupkani, the site supervisor for the preschool program, and I have been working to clear out all the rooms that were being used prior by the CDC, and kind of sorting through things and throwing things out that are old and damaged, and moving what can be salvaged over to the Del Air site, so that we are in preparation for reopening preschool over there. We currently do have the special education preschool program operating over at Cabrillo in the former CDC site, and we have 2 rooms there that we're using, and so we are again cleaning the Cabrillo site, the 138th site, and the Anza sites out for the Right at School program, and also in anticipation of moving our preschool over to Del Air. And we are meeting with Julie next week to start going through our checklist that we've developed and things that we need to do to kind of get that site up to speed. And we're excited about that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And it was fun to see you in person this week as well.
Yeah, it was.
Our
You too.
Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Dr. Dougal.
Good evening, everyone. First off, wanted to thank Beach Cities Health District, our partnership for the vaccine. We have had 2 weeks of vaccines, and the first week, the week of March 1st, we had 73 employees get vaccinated. This week, we had 25 more employees get vaccinated. We are proud to say that everyone that needed access to a vaccine the last 2 weeks has received it. And then next week, we are going to be starting with assisting some of our employees with the round 2 of the vaccine if they got it in another location. And so once again, just happy to report that everyone that has asked for access has been given access, has been able to get the vaccine, and that we are getting ready to actually start round 2 or the second dose of that vaccine for the employees that are ready for it. We also did our 3rd week of COVID testing for staff this week. And that's been going well. We have a protocol and system set up for every Wednesday at Dana. We have had questions regarding when are students getting tested. We are waiting from the state as we move from the purple to the red tier. The cadence for testing for students and staff is changing. And so we are waiting to see what those requirements are and what the recommendations are. So families, students and teachers, everyone, please be patient as we wait for the new guidance on the testing. We will continue with the staff testing, and then we'll have an update on student testing soon. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Nisha. Forgive me if I missed this. There was some comment a few weeks ago that the testing delivery location was going to be potentially moving closer. Has that happened?
Not yet. We have our own testing box at Dana with the key and everything. So we drop our own testing kits off at Dana, and then it gets picked up on Wednesday evening. So at this time, that is still the location for us.
We're still couriering them to Santa Clarita, but not closer. Is there still hope of that happening?
We hope, but as this testing cadence is changing, there may not be an incentive for the other organizations to have another testing drop-off site.
And then, sorry, one more is that you mentioned thank you to Beach Cities. They've been a great partner in this. Have they changed their location? They're not allowing their second shots at the same location?
No, they are. This is to help employees that received the first vaccine on their own, so not through Beach Cities. Okay. And so I have had numerous employees reach out and say they had a vaccine appointment for their second dose next week, and it was either canceled by Walgreens or it was pushed out to the week after. Or, so they've had various issues with trying to get their second dose. And so we've been able to collaborate with them and work them into the Beach Cities rotation, even if it's only for just the second dose.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you very much. Let's move to the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, Dr. Harbeck.
So thank you. I was also thrilled to see students back, Ed Services, to see the work that our teachers have done this year and to see kids come back still so interested in school was just fabulous. So it was a great day, and really a big thank you to our tech aides. I think I've mentioned this before, our school secretaries, our IT department, and Sarah Nitzos, who organized all the rollovers of the programs, the ad drop, and Power School. Ted Kaczynski from the Power School met with the secretaries to make sure we had that down. So it was a lot of people in the background, and cooler heads prevailed even during the bumps, and we want to thank our teachers for that. We submitted a grant this week to the LA County Arts Initiative. This is a grant we do apply for every year. We received $21,000 this past year, and it has made such a difference for our elementary schools and our middle schools in terms of those art nights and those art supplies. WEF also supported this, so we had just a great collaborative there on supplying visual arts. We did apply this year. We're hoping to continue those family dance nights that have been super popular. And we want to start our young artist assemblies with our TK through 5. This money also goes to support our instrument upkeep and purchase. Toby Harwell submitted, we asked our art teachers for input, of course, and he submitted that he'd like some new equipment for our media arts class at Dana. So we put in for that. And then finally, I was able to, Dave and I have started work on the LCAP. He mentioned that, our local control accountability plan. And I met this week with a student cohort at Dana. So student voice is something that we want to make sure we have in our LCAP, along with the PTAs that'll follow in our LCAP committee. But, it was terrific to meet with them online. And we did a Padlet activity where they got to comment. We asked them to look at 2 of our assurances, the whole child, which is their academic and their social emotional lives at school, and their future ready. And they wanted to know if they could comment on distance learning. Was this plan for distance learning? I said, no, we're hoping to move forward in the next 3 years to actual live learning. So just to share with you, some things that we'll keep in mind during that. They had asked that we really continue to have a focus on having access to our counselors. That's made a huge difference, they said, in their lives. Also celebrating diversity. They'd like to continue and grow lessons that they've experienced in stress management and a positive self-view. And they said these were life skills. I thought that was very, really wonderful for them to see that that's part of our lives. And finally, just a chance for students to be together and to collaborate. And Dr. Goldman, they did bring up financial literacy, which was amazing and wonderful. So that came up too. Only the 8th graders though. So they're a little more concerned. So I just want to share, it was terrific, and just big thank you to Dana for helping us put that together. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselors, diversity, stress management, collaboration, financial literacy. Boy, what an educated and impressive group. Well said. Well
There's
done.
optimism for the next generation here, man.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. Thank you on the grants. Maybe a question, I'm not sure if it's for you, Dr. Harbeck or Dr. Silvers. Thank you so much for the arts grant and continuing to do this. It's really been a help. Have we made a concerted effort? Are we continuing to make a concerted effort to look at other grant opportunities? Do we have anybody dedicated to that? I know that's a big task, but hey, if we can get money, God bless.
Eileen's looking at me, so I'm gonna take that one.
Well, we
all right.
you know,
We try, Dr. Goldman, and I do think that's an area that I would say is an area of an improvement. So I would agree that maybe we could start taking a look. There are more grants that are available, becoming more available, especially related to CTE. That's actually getting pushed down into the middle grades, and then below. So we do need to take a bigger look at that, and certainly as we move past the pandemic and into the future, we'll attack that part.
And Blake, I would just add that, the Weisbrunn Ed Foundation has been really at the forefront of looking for grants and really helping us with that. So
yeah, thanks for adding that.
And if there's consultants that may help us with that, especially on a contingency basis, why not? All right, thank you very much, Eileen. Dr. Silvers, the superintendent report, please.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of information today, and I'm gonna want to spend a majority of my time sharing some of the past, what's happened this week, and spent a majority of the week with a real huge smile on my face. I heard the term student-centered today. I've heard it through the past week. This past Monday, we did witness a really excited student body in our TK2 at ANZA and Cabrillo. Thank you to the board members who shared that day with us. I really did feel extremely lucky to stand with Dr. Goldman as our first ANZA student arrived on campus. I think it was just around 8 o'clock or so on Monday morning. I was able to see our experts, our teachers, welcome our youngest learners back, following these new safety protocols, right? Wearing masks, all these things that are required by the Department of Health that we've become so accustomed to. I really also want to share what Mr. Mora also shared, which is thanking our custodial grounds crew, our maintenance crew, the heavy lift of cleaning our facilities, not only before students come, but in between our AM, PM cohorts and those types of things. It really is a heavy lift, and it's taken a level of teamwork that is commendable. And so I just want to send a thank you to them for keeping our sites clean. To our clerical staff who have a litany of responsibilities in the office in the sort of the regular normal, right? And now in this new normal and in a reopening protocol, even more so with answering phone calls and making sure students and families are heard and guiding students, taking temperatures. Our support staff is walking students to class, again, taking students' temperatures, scanning or checking for the scanned check or green check in our scanning protocol. Those types of things, and traffic control, seeing the principals and other support staff really trying to get cars moving through so that students can get to class and away from the cars and so forth. We've reiterated again and again too that students have a choice, and I do want to send a real a thank you to our teachers and our students, our teachers first, who are teaching our distance learning kids. And it's really easy sort of to get clouded in the excitement of students coming back to campus after a year. But we do have a large number of students who are still learning from home, and we have a dedicated group of educators that are supporting those students at home learning and really, really dedicated to ensuring that those students have what they need to be successful from home in this distance learning model. As we've shared again and again at these meetings, students did have a choice, families did have a choice, and we wanted to honor that choice to the best of our ability. And so thank you to all those people, aides and teachers and the principals that help coordinate those schedules for those students who are teaching from home as well. It's it's not an easy task either. Also, the good news that we're seeing is that we're experiencing this just really immense rapid decline in COVID cases, where we reached an all-time low this week of 5.2 cases per 100,000. And as this continues, we expect to see the county enter the red tier in just a few days. I mean, it could be days, it could be as early as as Sunday or Monday, and really at the latest from the Department of Health would be looking at a Tuesday move into the red tier. This would mark a potential return for all high schools and middle school students, our secondary students across the county. And as the board heard from Kiana and Kevin today, we're gearing up for the return of our middle school students and look to open our gates on Monday, March 29th. And that's over a year since we closed our gates to the pandemic, and I would say today being March 11th, I believe was the day that the World Health Organization actually called, determined that this was a pandemic, that the coronavirus was a pandemic. So, we're well over a year. We're into March, a year later. Who would have thought, right, that we'd be sitting here today with not our full student body back, but really excited about the prospect of students being back on campus, and then also making sure that we're supporting those that aren't. With the excitement of our 3 to 5, 3rd through 5th grade students next week, I think that we look forward to the same process and protocols that went into the TK2 arrivals this week, and we expect it to be pretty seamless and flawless for our families and our students as ANZA becomes full, their full TK to 5 cohort of students, and then also we'll be reopening our 138th Street School. We've come a long way. Really learned a lot over the time. We've learned a lot about the virus. We've learned how it spreads, how it doesn't, the myriad of phone calls and research that has been passed down to schools from the Department of Health was really been helpful. And I do want to say, despite the misinformation, despite the sometimes the lack of coordinated messaging from the county and from the state, Dr. Ferrer and Dr. Gilchek, who are both, the experts at the county, have spent quite a bit of time with local educational leaders, and their time has meant a lot to us as we've been able to sort of navigate this reopening protocol. And so I do want to say thank you to them and to Dr. Duardo, our Superintendent of Public Instruction for Los Angeles County. Also want to share I know Joanne shared about the Right at School program. Very excited to see the launch of the Right at School program. We had well over, I think, 150. I lost track at one point yesterday, but I know there are I think well over 150 families or individuals that joined us for the introductory parent meeting. And right after that, I think we quadrupled our enrollment. So people are enrolling, and our goal is to have as small of a wait list as possible, if any. And so that's really been our goal from the beginning. We're working with our principals now to secure locations. The Right at School program actually is very flexible. So we could find flexible spaces and multi-purpose rooms, field space, and as they rotate kids through, we believe that we can utilize our facilities in a way that will be efficient and that we'll be able to minimize that wait list. Again, trying to make sure there's no wait list if possible. So I think that pretty much everybody said what I wanted to say today, and I'm just very thankful. I'm again, a smile on my face all week, and thank you to the staff, again, to the teachers, to this board, to everybody from classified to certificated to our administrative team. This has been probably the biggest lift of the year, and it was just so rewarding, and I'm deeply grateful. Thank you. That's all for me, Dr. Goldman.
Thank you, Dr. Silvers. One last thing I neglected to mention in my comments, and then we'll start on our agenda, is that it is our intention, as we are bringing our teachers and our staff back, to in fact bring ourselves back to the boardroom for in-person live board meetings. We are wanting to ensure we offer the same safety and security in the boardroom, including the pure air purifiers, which is my understanding they're not quite in yet, as well as we keep people safe. So our expectation is perhaps not at our next board meeting, maybe, but certainly by the meeting in April, I believe April 15th, we do expect to be in some capacity in the boardroom and continue in the streaming capacity so that people can attend live or in person. And live would be limited capacity in line with safety measures. With that said, let us continue and move to our agenda, items 6, 1, and 2, minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
A motion.
Have a motion? No. I'll second.
Thank you both. There we go. Putting that up. Wendy, my only comment is thank you for making the adjustment in one spelling issue. I appreciate your responsiveness there, and let's take a vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Action items, facilities, 7.1, ratify contract with M&R Painting and Decorating for exterior painting and columns and pillars at Juan Cabrillo Elementary School, ratification. Motion, please.
You have a motion?
I'll second.
Thank you. Questions or comments here, folks? Wendy, a vote, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
All right, moving to action items, fiscal. This is where, Dave, we're going to rely on your expertise for much of this item. 8.1, I need a motion, please.
You have a motion?
You have a second?
Thank you. To approve the second interim report. We did have a presentation. Thank you. Any other questions for Dave here?
No, it was a
No
great
questions.
job.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Wendy, vote please.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
As these are all action items, we do need to take them, the advisory is to take them independently. So 8.2, approved declaration of indefinite salaries for the coming year, current year.
You have a motion?
I'll second.
Joanne, thank you. Any questions here? This is something we do every year. All right, Wendy?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Item 8.3, authorize the CBO to make inter-fund, there we go, cash transfers among the district's various funds in accordance with 2021-22 adopted modified budgets in Ed Code.
You have a motion?
You have a second?
Thank you. Dave, quick explanation.
Yes, so this would just allow me, if I wanted to permanently transfer, like say I wanted to transfer funds from Fund 17 to Fund 01 on a permanent basis, this allows me to do it.
Does that mean we don't need to have this again next year because it's ongoing?
This is only for one fiscal year at a time. So this is for only for the 21-22 fiscal year.
All right. This is not moving money outside. This is moving money inside to avoid cash flow issues.
Correct.
Wendy, let's take it to a vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Item 8.4, adoption resolution 2021.19 regarding cash borrowing, temporary transfers from the school pools fund maintained by the LA County Treasurer. Motion?
Motion. Motion with the question.
Second?
Thank you. Go ahead, Roger.
Dave, question on this. Is this an anticipation of the deferrals? This, I believe we used to do this for like as a trans in the past, right? So this is a substitute of a trans. Now we're utilizing the going through LA County. Is that correct?
So somewhat correct. So every year we do this. So the first thing we would do in a cash flow issue would be borrowing, temporarily borrowing from our other funds into the general fund. If once we exhausted that, then we go to this second option, which is temporary borrowing from the county treasurer. This wasn't an option this year due to deferrals because the pool is not large enough for every single district and community college district to absorb all the deferrals. So this is like more of like a one-off. Like if one district got itself in trouble or a couple districts got themselves in trouble, they could consider borrowing from the county pool. But on a deferral basis as large as we saw this year, there was just not enough money in this pool to allocate to all districts.
So do you think we'll still need a separate item for a trans?
We did the trans this year. My understanding based on the January's governor budget proposal is that he would do away with all deferrals next year except for the June to July deferral. So February through May would be wiped out. I don't think we would need to do a trans next year, but by doing this, if the cash became an issue and we couldn't borrow internally from our other funds, we could ask the county for a cash flow.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Wendy, let's have a vote, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Item 8.5, adopt resolution 21.20, annual delegation of administrative authority to process routine budget revisions, adjustments, and transfers.
You have a motion?
Second?
Dave, I had a question on the 500,000 versus 85% question on this that's in the document itself?
Yeah, so this is basically, this would be allowing me, just like we saw in the second interim, to adjust the budget internally, not one item more than 500,000, I believe, or yeah, not adjustment greater than 500,000. I'm not
Again,
sure if this was the 85%.
You're right. I'm mixing it up, but the 500,000 is the again internal. This is not outgoing or ingoing. It's just between funds.
It's just a budget change. So like I was showing you in the second interim, it's just a revision to the budget. I'm able to move those budgeted figures around.
But not touch the total. Can you affect the total budget or just where you allocate within the existing budget?
Correct, the latter, just where you allocate within the existing budget. So if we wanted to change the budget overall, that would need board approval, right?
Got it. That's what I was wondering.
Does this, what is this, what's the advantage here for you, Dave? What does this mean?
Just so that, if I wanted to change a budget internally, then in the general fund, not having to go back to the board every single time. So we do the major ones at first interim and second interim, but if I had to do a minor, less than $500,000, I wouldn't have to go back to the board and ask for permission. Obviously I would, but it wouldn't have to be on a formal basis.
And just for clarity, this one is actually authorizing our superintendent, Blake Silvers. This is not an authorization for our CBO, Dave.
Okay.
I just want, that's how this one is. Just want to make sure, because I think the last one was for you. I mean, granting that authority for the interfund transfers. This one is for these budget adjustments for our superintendent to make.
If he wants to make those adjustments, that'd be great.
I just wanted to make sure who's doing what, who's on first here.
I mean, I think the authority would pass through me, but I would obviously, Dave would provide the recommendation and go from there.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments or questions here? All right, Wendy, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
8.6, consider adoption of resolution 2021.21 regarding cash borrowing, temporary transfers of cash between district funds.
You have a motion?
Thank you, Nelson.
I'll second. Whatever. Go for Israel. That's fine.
Temporary transfers, we had a not temporary earlier. What's the difference?
So 8.3 was more of a permanent basis. Temporary would be, like we did this year. I moved about $2.5 million from other funds to the general fund to mitigate cash flow issues earlier in the year. And then I have to pay them back to the other funds by a certain point in the fiscal year. So this is more of a temporary nature, where the previous one was more of a permanent nature.
Further questions from anyone? Okay. We do this. Go ahead, Wendy.
But every year, guys.
Every year.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
8.7, adopt resolution 2021.22, reissuance of stale dated warrants.
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. This is merely for, we have a time limit on the checks we send. If they're not cashed, we need time and approval to resend them.
Correct. They get stale dated after 6 months. I guess some of our vendors have deep pockets and they forget to cash checks. And so after 6 months, a report comes and then we reissue those checks.
So if we don't approve this, do we have to reissue checks?
Great cost savings measure.
There you go. Once they're out, right.
We might pay more in attorney fees though, Dr. Holman.
Right, yeah, no, not of interest. All right, Ms. Subaki, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Thank you.
Item 8.8, ratify, approve miscellaneous receipts and purchase orders.
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments on or questions on these two?
No questions.
Just one thing that came from this from an earlier conversation I had with Dr. Silvers and Dave and Mr. Wilson was that in the future, we're hoping to have a cash flow report that gives us projections. My comment was we see the pass-through in lieu of tax from Da Vinci that we pay and get reimbursed. My comment was we don't see the reimbursement. So we will see that moving forward, and also have a cash flow projection to the question you made earlier, Roger, about, for example, trans, will we need it? We should be able to see that hopefully in the projection. So hopefully that'll add some new value for us in our financial projections.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Subaki?
Favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Thank you.
Actually, I have a belated question, Dr. Goldman. There were 400 Chromebooks here. What were those for? Which school?
I can answer
Eileen, you
that.
gonna take that?
So to date, we have loaned out about 1,978 Chromebooks to our students, and 260 of those have been returned and cannot be repaired. So we typically do a refresh every year of our Chromebooks, and that 400 actually was ordered back in the summer. We weren't able to get them until now because there's so many back orders with schools and Chromebooks. So they didn't go to a school. They're part of the refresh that we do as a district.
Thank
And
you
to
very
replace
much.
it, we are expecting a little more breakage too by the time we get those Chromebooks back.
Yeah, that'd be normal.
Is there any value that we can retain from those broken Chromebooks? Are they just garbage and we throw them away, or is there any value from them?
No, the IT department is, they definitely try and alter. It had to do, these are really the older Chromebooks that we purchased a long time ago. There's a hinge issue with them, but no, they definitely pull parts from those. We own them, so we're able to pull them apart and use parts.
Great. All right, thank you very much.
Mhm.
Why don't we take 8-9 and 8-10 together in the interest of efficiency?
You have a motion?
For 8-9 and 8-10.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments or questions here?
No.
All right, this the E-rate services is our small investment to save us significant dollars on getting E-rate costs. So a good benefit to us all. Ms. Subaki, please take a vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Goldman, do you mind if I just jump in real quick? I'm sorry, I don't want to mess up the flow. I think that as this came up, we talked about technology. Israel, I appreciate you bringing that up. And I realize in my report, I should have and would have thanked the tech team and Sarah, and this really brought that to mind. And I'm sorry that wasn't top of my mind, or one of the tops of my mind. The amount of work, I think we called it the great, what was it, Eileen? The great rollover, or this push of PowerSchool in order to get all the programs from, as we started the TK2 and then the 3-5 students in new classes and a new schedule. It was, I think they were referring to it as the great rollover. And Eileen and Juan and Jinsu and Juan and Sarah Nitzos and others were very instrumental in making that happen. And it was seamless, and there was a ton of work behind that. And I just want to extend my sincere gratitude to them as well. Apologize, it came late in this report.
No, it's all good. In fact, it reminds me about hotspots. Did we need more hotspots?
Nope, I'm glad you asked that question. We have 133 hotspots out, and we have 126 waiting to go out for families that need them.
Does that mean we have 126 families without internet access at present?
No, basically anyone who's requested has been, some have more than one. So anyone who's asked.
Eileen, you have 126 still available to hand out, is what you're saying.
We do, and those came from
Okay.
LACO, so we do. It was an
Yeah,
excess.
thank you. Mhm.
Thanks for the clarification, Mr. Moore.
I think I want to pile on what Dr. Silver said about our technology staff. I mean, all behind the scenes, look at the success with distance learning, the success with how many Chromebooks are out there, how many teachers needed help, how many students probably needed, how many families needed help. And now we've got the hybrid model. So the Chromebooks are in the classroom, the Chromebooks are still at home. There's just a phenomenal amount of behind the scenes technology support. And it has been seamless, which means there's a lot of people working really hard, because as we all know, nothing is seamless really without good planning and without good implementation. So I want to pile on, Blake. Thank you for bringing that up.
All right, good stuff. Let's go to consent items 9-1 through 10.
I'm sorry, I have one more question. One request for the technology group. Can we get Israel another background on his Chromebook? Is that possible with our great technology
I like
group?
my halo. Come on.
Can we have that as a goal for our future staff, for our future board meeting? Thank you.
I think we need to sign them up for some training.
I think we need help.
I'm getting you out of this. I'm moving on. All right.
Thank you.
You have a motion,
9-1
9-1 to 9-10.
Thank you, Mr. Mora.
I'll second that.
All right. Any questions on any of these or requests?
No.
All right. Ms. Zubaki, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
My hand is aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
All right. You could adjust the, thank you very much, Wendy. Moving on to, let's take, we have the two resignations, 10-1 and 10-2. We will be recognizing some of these longer term staff in our, I don't know if it's May or June when we do this annually, to give them special recognition, but this time we'll simply take the agenda item 10-1 and 10-2 if we can have an agenda, a motion.
You have a motion for 10-1, 10-2?
Thank you.
And a second for 10-1 and 10-2.
Ms. Zubaki?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. 10-3 is something we do every year. It's just perfunctory, but we certainly hope to have all these folks back. Dr. Dougal, I don't know if you have any thoughts here for us.
Yes, exactly what Dr. Goldman had said. It is a process that we do each year for our temporary assignments. We do hope to return all of them, but it'll depend on staffing for next year.
Thank you. We do need a motion.
You have a motion?
Thank you, Nelson.
Second.
Thank you, Roger. Wendy, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
I believe we can motion the remainder in section 10. If
I would
someone,
like to motion 10.4 through 10.7, Neil.
thank you very much.
You have a
I'll
second?
second.
Thank you. With no-
Echoes.
No questions for me?
Ms.
No.
Zubaki, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
All right. It's my understanding we do not need a second closed. So let's look at upcoming dates and events. Ms. Zubaki, you want to tell us about these? Can I ask you to do that?
138th Street has submitted their C's Easter Candy fundraiser. I believe that goes just a few more days out. On their website, they do have a form, or it takes you to their website, and unfortunately that website does show still Peter Burnett because it's not able to be changed, but it is for 138th Street fundraiser. And we will have a regular meeting at the end of March 25th.
Great.
Dr. Goldman, I expect to see this probably a little fuller in the next in the approaching months. We'll start having more dates on here so yeah, we'll do a better job of listing out, and I think we'll have more dates to list. So
Just a reminder that March 15th 3rd through 5th starts at Burnett, right?
What's the date for Rock Around the Block? Please remind me.
May 1st?
Is it May?
May 1st.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. And Mr. Zubaki, I threw a curve at you, so thank you very much. Everybody should know that we don't hear that much from Wendy Zubaki other than taking votes at these meetings, but the reality is she makes everybody else look good. So thank you so very much for all your great work.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
Are there any other issues or comments or questions or items that need to be addressed this evening?
Nope.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
We'll take a motion. Wendy, let's take a vote on that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good
Good night, all.
Have a good evening.
Thank you all.